Officers tracked down 37-year-old Patrick Lawrence at his job in the city of Justin using a combination of technology and witness statements. The arrest affidavit mentions another vehicle equipped with a dash camera recorded the freeway shooting that killed teacher's aide, 24-year-old LaTaivia Davis, who was driving a red sedan.
A woman is driving to work on a Thursday morning, doing the same commute she's done 100 times before. Within seconds, one gunshot ends her life on a Texas interstate, and the man accused of pulling the trigger doesn't stop. He doesn't call for help. He keeps driving, clocks in at his job over 30 miles away, and goes about his day like nothing happened. That single decision, to just keep driving, is the moment this entire case turns from a tragedy into a mystery about what really happens inside a person's mind in the seconds after violence. Before we go further, if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because Mystora Crimes brings you deep into the cases where secrets, justice, and humanity collide. And if this story pulls you in, drop a like. It genuinely helps us keep telling these stories the right way, with respect to the people at the center of them. Her name was LaTaivia Davis. She was 34 years old, and to the people who knew her, she was far more than a headline. At the Vision Church of Fort Worth, a small congregation on Mansfield Avenue, she was known as TT. Friends described the nickname as a mix of fire, goodness, and quietness, a fitting description for a woman who sang in the youth choir, worked with the children's ministry, and volunteered doing outreach for the unsheltered. She had a sister and 2 younger brothers, and by day, she worked as an instructional aide at E-Ray Elementary School, part of the Everman Independent School District, where she helped shape young minds through art. On the morning of August 13th, 2026, Davis was doing what she did most weekdays, driving to work. It was just after 6:30 in the morning, still early enough that the sun was barely up, as she merged onto the eastbound lanes of Interstate 20 near Trail Lake Drive in southwest Fort Worth. Somewhere in that stretch of highway, her red sedan ended up alongside a blue Volkswagen driven by a 37-year-old man named Patrick Lawrence. What exactly triggered what happened next is still, in many ways, contested. But what isn't contested is this. Within moments, a single gunshot was fired into Davis's car. Witnesses told police they heard a loud bang, and then saw a red sedan swerve and crash into the concrete median. 3 strangers, ordinary commuters on their way to work themselves, pulled over and rushed to help her. First responders arrived and tried to save her life. She was pronounced dead at the scene at 6:52 that morning, and the man police say was responsible, according to the arrest affidavit, he didn't stop. He continued east, took the Granbury Road exit, and drove more than 30 miles to his workplace in Justin, Texas, as if the last few minutes hadn't happened at all. This is where the story of LaTaivia Davis begins. Not with an ending, but with a highway full of unanswered questions about how a routine morning commute turned fatal in a matter of seconds. According to the account Patrick Lawrence later gave to investigators, the encounter started small, the kind of moment that happens on highways every single day and almost never ends in tragedy. He told police he had merged into the far-right lane, ahead of Davis's vehicle, preparing to enter the interstate. He said that as he did, her car began tailgating him. Then, according to his statement, her vehicle merged left, cutting across the white markings of the on-ramp to get around him and onto the highway. It was in that moment, Lawrence told detectives, that he pulled out a handgun and fired a single shot into her car as it passed him. One shot. That's what investigators say separates this case from so many road rage stories that end in shouting, honking, maybe a rude gesture, and nothing more. Here, in the span of what witnesses estimated as just seconds, an ordinary traffic dispute became a homicide. Police say a witness's dashcam captured the vehicles together on South Hullen Street, heading north toward the interstate. Just before the shooting, footage that would become critical and identify who was behind the wheel of that blue Volkswagen. Investigators also recovered a single-fired 9mm shell casing near the Granbury Road exit, consistent with the account of a lone gunshot. But here's where the behavior gets harder to reconcile. If this was, as described, a sudden reaction to being cut off, a split-second combustion of anger, why did what followed look so calculated? Lawrence didn't pull over. He didn't call police. He didn't attempt to render aid, or even confirm what had happened to the woman in the car he'd just fired into. Instead, he took the next exit, merged back into traffic, and drove over 30 miles north to Justin, Texas, arriving at his job as though it were any other day. For hours, while Fort Worth police shut down the eastbound lanes of I-20 and cadets combed the highway for evidence, while homicide detectives processed a scene where a woman lay fatally wounded against a concrete barrier, the man they were searching for was reportedly at work. It was that dashcam footage that changed everything. By analyzing the recording, detectives were able to identify the blue Volkswagen and trace it back to its registered owner, Patrick Lawrence. Fort Worth PD described the effort to locate him as a coordinated operation, pulling in patrol officers, the homicide unit, the real-time crime center, and a surveillance team. That afternoon, officers found him at his workplace in Justin, just as he was heading out for his lunch break. When they approached him, they reportedly noticed a handgun sitting in the driver's side door pocket of his vehicle. What happened next adds another layer to the story. According to the affidavit, Lawrence didn't resist or deny involvement. He spoke with detectives voluntarily and allowed them to search his car, telling them exactly where the gun was. It was a moment of unusual cooperation for someone accused of a fatal shooting just hours earlier, and it raises a question that has followed this case ever since. Was this a man who felt he had nothing to hide, believing his account of self-defense or provocation would be understood? Or was it the calm of someone who had already made peace with the consequences of what he'd done? That is not something anyone outside of Lawrence's own mind can answer. What we do know is that later that same day, Fort Worth police announced his arrest. He was booked into custody and charged with murder in the death of LaTaivia Davis. Bond was eventually set at $300,000. As of the most recent reporting, it remains unclear whether he has posted that bond, or who, if anyone, is representing him in court. For the family and friends of LaTaivia Davis, none of these details change the reality they're living with. McCoya Jones, whose parents pastored the Vision Church where Davis worshipped, put it simply, she said Davis was someone who planned, someone with a future in front of her, and that the person who ended her life took away everything she was still building toward. So where does this case actually stand right now? What we know for certain is this. LaTaivia Davis, a 34-year-old teacher's aide and devoted member of her church community, was shot and killed on I-20 in Fort Worth on the morning of August 13th, 2026. Patrick Lawrence was identified through dashcam footage located at his workplace and has been charged with her murder. He has admitted, according to the affidavit, to firing the shot that killed her. What remains disputed or simply unknown is almost everything about the why. We don't know what words, if any, were exchanged between the two drivers. We don't know if Davis was aware a weapon was even present before the shot was fired. We don't know what legal defense, if any, Lawrence's team intends to raise, whether this will be framed as an impulsive act of road rage or something his defense might argue was provoked or perceived as a threat. And critically, this case has not gone to trial. No verdict has been reached. Under the law, Patrick Lawrence is presumed innocent unless and until a court says otherwise. What we're left with is a highway, a single gunshot, and a woman who never made it to classroom she walked into nearly every day. A community mourning someone they called TT, and a legal process that, as of now, is still unfolding, with far more questions ahead of it than answers behind it. So we want to hear from you. Do you think this case is as straightforward as it appears? A moment of rage with tragic, irreversible consequences? Or do you think there are still pieces of this story we haven't heard yet? What do you make of a suspect who, by his own account, kept driving to work after firing that shot? Leave your thoughts, your theories, your questions in the comments below. This community has cracked open conversations on cases before, and your perspective matters here too. If you want to be here when new developments in this case break, make sure you're subscribed to Mystora Crimes with notifications turned on so you never miss where the truth leads next.